you want to decide how you die? Think for a moment about your nearest family member. If you were in an accident that left you in a persistent vegetative state, would they know enough about your wishes to make an educated decision about what you want? Do you think a 20-year-old should have an advance directive? 30 years old? 40? At what age do you think you should have an advance directive? Which is putting your wants in writing, exactly what you want to have happen should you be in a position where you can't speak for yourself. In 1990, at age 26, a woman who on the outside showed no sign of illness collapsed in her home from a major cardiac arrest. Teresa Schiavo was without oxygen for long enough to cause permanent brain damage and leave her comatose. After 2 months of therapy without improvement, her doctors upgraded her diagnosis to a persistent vegetative state. She was unable to eat or swallow while in the hospital, and while she was there, she was intubated, and the physicians also inserted a feeding tube. A feeding tube supplies nutrition directly into the body, but is considered an extreme measure by most courts. According to a report filed with Governor Jeb Bush and the 6th Judicial Court on abstractappeal.com, continuing to expose Terry to swallowing studies and tests at the request of her family were not in her best interest. Her husband was in and out of court from 1990 to 2005 with Terry's family. He testified that Terry had discussed her wishes with him in depth, and during their relationship he knew what she wanted should something like this happen to her. She had never told the same to her parents. He knew that she would not want to be kept alive by artificial means, but her family did not agree. Her family argued that she would want to stay alive as long as possible by any means necessary, and they considered that a reason to go to court. Mr. Schiavo eventually did win the case. He removed Terry's feeding tube in March of 2005. This is just one of many cases where a written advance directive would have saved many people heartache, time, and money. Have you ever heard of a DNR, or a do not resuscitate order? Many people have not, but it's one way to begin to express your wishes to your family. It's not enough to tell your family, however. If a DNR is not in writing, emergency responders will utilize all means necessary to keep you breathing. Even those with DNR tattoos have been known to be placed on life support or had their hearts started again, if there's not a written order produced. I personally have put my wishes in writing and sat with my family and had the conversation about what I want if I'm faced with a terminal illness. According to AARP.org, it is not necessary to spend money on an attorney, as I did, to create an advance directive. They explain the two types of advance directive in detail and provide forms that you can use to create your own. One type of advance directive is called a living will. A living will is express details that spells out exactly what you want at the end of life if you cannot speak for yourself. It directs all medical professionals your specific decisions as whether or not to accept mechanical ventilation or supplemental nutrition. The second type of advance directive is a healthcare power of attorney. This is a document that appoints someone else to talk for you if you are in a state where you cannot speak for yourself. This person becomes your spokesperson, but if you do not have a living will, they can still, if you do have a living will, they can still ignore your wishes and make decisions based on emotion. If you choose this type of advance directive, you should be certain that the person you choose will truly follow your wishes. My living will states that if I'm in a condition that leaves me unable to breathe or sustain nutrition on my own, I do not want physicians to keep me alive by artificial means. In a hospital setting, two physicians will determine that I am unable to make decisions for myself, and they will enforce my living will based on what I've written and shared with my family. The American Cancer Society website has great information at www.cancer.org regarding advance directives and the choices that you have when deciding on your care when facing a terminal illness. One other thing that I would like you to think about when making decisions about how you would like to die is organ donation. A lot of us sign the form at the DMV allowing for organ donation, but do you know that if you don't have this conversation with your family, they can still decide not to share your organs with someone at your death if you're in a motor vehicle accident? Sit down and communicate. I urge you to do this. Tell your family what it is that you want should you be faced with a terminal illness. Terry Schiavo, I'm sure, at 26 years old, never had that thought cross her mind. She never dreamed in her life she would be in the spotlight of court cases and news articles and basically family turmoil for the better part of 10 years. The contention and pain that it caused her husband and her parents, I am sure, was more than she expected. He was successful in granting her wishes, but it was a great cost. In the end, he even had "I kept my promise" etched on her graveside. Her epitaph records 2 dates. The day that her husband felt she truly died, which is in February of 1990, and the day she finally found peace, he wrote, as on March 31st, 2005. It is never too early to think about how you might die. This is not a question that you should ignore. Consider making a decision that will save your loved ones the challenge of trying to decide what you would want in the event of this type of event. You can use an attorney or utilize the internet to find the forms and the information that you need to make this decision. But remember to have the conversation with your loved ones. You can choose how you die.